back in 2022. That's all, by the way. I don't know about you, but for me, Severance Season 1 seems so long ago. But yes, 3 years ago, Apple TV's Severance kind of snuck up on us. It was a drama from Ben Stiller, of all people, and it was like Lost at Work. And it was like a Twilight Zone episode, but like even more bizarre. And it had extremely strong commentary on the corporate workplace. It was really wonderful. I remember that they sent out to critics, like Lumon pens and pads, and all my friends wanted one. They were like, oh my gosh. I actually even asked Apple to send me some more because so many people wanted it. And there was an activation the other day, and they actually gave out some tote bags, and I loved seeing people's glee. If you're into the show, you want Lumon office supplies. But anyway, then of course, I think what really sold the show for everybody was it had one of the best cliffhanger endings for season 1 in like television history. It was amazing. I still remember watching the season finale and just being on the edge of my seat for the entire hour or 45 minutes or whatever. I mean, and that's hard to do. It was just one of the best episodes of TV ever. So Stiller was shocked that when he and the show would later go on to Comic-Con, they were able to fill a fairly large room. And he tweeted about it, and it was very charming. Because, when you make shows for streaming, especially a streaming service that's a little bit smaller, like Apple TV, a little more niche, let's say, you're in a vacuum. You don't know if anybody's watching your show. And to see the show blow up like that in a way like, oh, wow, we could fill the room, I thought, it was just amazing and very rewarding. I think not only for Stiller and the people who make the show, but for those of us who like it. It's always nice when something that you think is really wonderful is appreciated by others. So the show would also go on to earn 14 Emmy noms, but it couldn't win any major ones. I hope that will change maybe with season 2. And as I said, they had this cool marketing event at Grand Central Station the other day, and not only based on the crowd that it drew, but all the attention that it got on social media, the show might still be very popular. Everybody might have held on, which I think is, very exciting. Squid Game took a really long time, about the same amount of time actually, to come back, and it was still able to return as a ratings juggernaut. So could Severance, after all these years, with its audience slowly growing, people discovering the show over time, so, the audience has grown, and Ted Lasso is gone, at least for now, could it become Apple TV's new signature show? I think so. I hope so. Oh, I love this show. I'm amazed at the quality of season 2. Season 1 was like lightning in a bottle, and you'd always wonder if, it can be duplicated. And I thought Squid Game season 2 succeeded in not only duplicating, but being even better. And I think the same for Severance season 2. I mean, I haven't seen all the episodes, which we'll discuss in a moment, but I'm just so impressed with what they were able to do, especially because it's hard to write this kind of stuff and not have it, not just go off into nothingness and, just ask the writers of Lost. Although, who knows what'll happen with Severance in the end. But this is very hard to do, but they did it, at least for the 6 episodes that I saw. And I was worried about season 2. Because the delay was not only because of the actors and writers' strikes, which stopped production, but there were rumors from reputable sources that there was a lot of behind-the-scenes drama with season 2, a lot of infighting with the showrunners. Ben Stiller denied it, but whatever happened, it was part of their process. Because as I said, it has turned out beautifully. So yes, they gave us 6 out of 10 episodes in advance, and I gotta say, those final 4 episodes must be bangers, because in the first 6 episodes, there are so many twists, surprises, and reveals that if they trust us not to blurt those out, how are the 4 remaining episodes hotter than that? They're like, oh, it's too hot for you for us to reveal. And you're like, you trusted me with a lot of twists and turns. And they're like, yes, but you just can't handle the back 4. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what's in there? I mean, it was just, This isn't like a season where you're going to have to wait for the very end to be like, have your mind blown. It's going to happen week to week. Although on that note, I do think the first episode is the weakest. I know, right? And that's a shame because this is a week-to-week release, and with the very first week, they're only putting out the one episode. Some streamers will put out 2 to 3 episodes to really get you hooked, but Apple TV's just going with the one. I would have advised them against that. I would have probably released the first 3. That's what Prime Video does. I think it's a very good strategy. And then I think I watched the first 3, and I watched the first one by itself, and then I was like, I'm worried about this show, and then this season, and then I watched the next 2, and I was like, sold. So I wish they'd given you the first 3 in advance. But if you're a little underwhelmed by episode 1 like I was, don't give up on the show. Just have that kind of worried feeling for a week, and then go check out episode 2. But yes, it starts this Friday, January 17th. And Apple TV likes to drop its episodes at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So it'll be up tonight. The first episode is directed by Mr. Ben Stiller himself. He directs a number of episodes this season. Visually, I have to give him, kudos, because season 2, episode 1 is visually wildly inventive. So much so that it even takes you a little out of the show because you're like, how'd you do that? I was having a hard time figuring out how he could have done the opening shot. I think it was the opening shot, but you'll notice it. There's this thing that has this crazy camera work, and you're like, how'd you do that? I think part of me wondered if it was a drone. It was amazing. Maybe part of it was VFX, but it was just really incredible. Also, although I didn't like it's not in the first episode, but it starts in the second episode, the credit sequence. I think they won the Emmy, one of the few Emmys, they won 2 Emmys. One was for opening credit, the credit sequence. I don't like the credit sequence this season. I thought it was a little disturbing, so I actually ended up always fast forwarding through it. I was like, too much. But I also became really concerned about suddenly having our lead characters doubled. Something that I didn't think that was going to be an issue. It didn't even occur to me until I watched season 2, episode 1, and I was like, oh my gosh, we've gone from 4 to 8 lead characters. Because before we were focusing just on the Innies, really, and Mark S's Innie and Outie, but now we had all the Outies in play, and I was like, how are you going to handle this? Well, again, after, once I got to episode 2 and 3, I was like, you figured it out. It was great. And they not only figured out the situation with the core 4, but somehow also have managed to find the time to give Milchick his own really rich storyline as well, which I was so happy to see because I love Milchick. It's particularly helpful to the overall story to have more time for Milchick because it shows that working at Lumon isn't great even for upper management employees who aren't severed. Like, everybody's having a difficult time. And on that note, I've seen some reviewers say that season 2 is bleaker. Well, yes, the stakes are much higher, and Lumon is revealed to be an even more sinister and aggressive company than we initially thought. And we thought they were pretty bad. And they really, deep down, don't value anyone. The company doesn't value anybody. Maybe just like Keir himself, or whoever's running the company right now. But, I think that's part of the reason that the top people are like these faceless, you never see them. Because do they even really exist? It's just the identity of the company. It's very interesting. The board, who, of course, as we've come to learn, really only care about the stock market. All right, so at the same time, though, even though it's a lot bleaker and darker, I do think that season 2, at least so far, balances that out by also being very hopeful. Our 4 lead characters are standing up for themselves and they're fighting back. And so that really, I think, gives you hope. And then even Milchick, well, you'll see what's going on with Milchick. You can only control people so much. This show made me think about a lot of stuff. This is a non-spoiler review, so I will talk about the characters in a moment, but I want to share some of the thoughts I had with you while watching the first couple of episodes. So there's the old saying that man plans and God laughs, and also Murphy's Law, anything that can go wrong will, because of the unexpected variables in life, which are not only an issue for people, but for corporations as well. And I think this show captures that extremely well also. There's also more romance this season, which of course I think lightens things a little bit across the board, with romantic relationships from season 1 further explored so amazingly. If you are a fan of any of the romantic relationships on this show, you are going to be so happy with season 2. And there are some new ones introduced as well. They're all really touching, but because this is Severance, they're also unbelievably complex. Although that's just like real life relationships, right? I'm really glad that season 2 is 10 episodes, and all the episodes are about 45 to 50 minutes long. And that's one more episode, by the way, than season 1 even. So it gives the show the time it needs. I think Shogun was 10 episodes. Every show really should, make sure it has enough time, looking at you, Disney Plus, to do it correctly. At least Daredevil's supposed to be 9 episodes. Of the 6 episodes that I watched, I thought episode 1 was the weakest. Episode 3 had an incredible cliffhanger ending. I was like, again, they should have released the first 3 on day 1. When you see the end of episode 3, you'll be like, oh my God. But then when episode 4 started, I was so late at night when I watched the end of episode 3. I was like, I can barely keep my eyes open, but I have to see what happens next because I'm able to binge as a critic. So I turned on episode 4 and I'm like, what the heck is this? It seemed like they lost their momentum. And at first I was hugely disappointed. After about 5 minutes, I turned it off, went to watch it the next day. And the episode just kept going on with this new element. And it seemed to be spinning its wheels, taking a break. And I was frustrated. I was like, is this really the whole episode, what you're going to focus on, considering what just happened at the end of episode 3? But I'm glad I stuck with it, because the end of episode 4 is the greatest scene, I think one of the greatest scenes in television history. It blew my mind. It instantly catapulted this show to, I think, one of the greatest shows of all time. I can't tell you which characters were involved, but it made them a boss. It was so good. When episode 4 drops, don't go on social media until you've watched it, because I really don't want it ruined for you, and people will be talking about it. It was incredible. It was incredible. I can't believe how good it was. Also, while episode 4 has a surreal quality to it, it's very Keir-centric. I think the point, it made me think about Lumon's Mythology, because, they were going on another one of those, quests, and I was like, oh my God. But I was like, what's the point of this, right? So I think corporations and multiple groups make up mythologies to make you more emotionally invested. And, I think even, there's no legendary things happening anymore. Well, it's all how you phrase it. It's all how you sell it, baby. So even your own experiences, if you decided to tell it in a legendary style, you too could have the legend of you. So I thought that was very interesting. And we've all had fever dreams and crazy situations and gone on our own journeys. But anyway, it's not so much, the mythology that's important, but what it means to you, right? Do you need to believe? And then what do you need to believe in? And what about that specific mythology appeals to you? You could even apply this to fandoms, which I find fascinating. Like, why are we drawn to certain stories while other people are drawn to other stories? Like, I'm a big Batman X-Men fan, and I think that actually says a lot about me, because there are other people I've met who are like Flash Green Lantern fans. And what's that say about them? I can't even fathom being a Flash Green Lantern fan. I mean, I respect them as characters, but I'm like, is that really what you're going to do with your time? But I just love Batman X-Men, and I can't imagine anyone not understanding how cool they are. It's interesting to me. Episode 4 really made me think. It's funny, I really was like, I hated it for most of while I was watching it. But in the end, it might be one of my favorite hours of TV. In the 6 episodes that I saw, they consist mostly of our core 4 characters, their Innies and their Outies, and then also Mr. Milcheck. To the show's credit, they all have really amazing storylines. Adam Scott continues to be the lead, and he's particularly good at playing his Innie and his Outie, who are in very different places in their lives, so that he's able to handle that difference and still make them seem like the same person, but yet not, is really great. Britt Lauer's Helly R. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Some of the most amazing writing I've ever seen, and so subtle. That she as an actress is able to pull this off is extremely impressive. John Turturro's Irving, he becomes even more intriguing this season. That's all I can say. I really like his character. Zach Cherry is great, but as the show ramps it up, it becomes apparent he's not quite as good an actor, or maybe it's that he's not as experienced as the other actors on the show. So he falls back a little bit, but he's still extremely likable, and he has some amazing things happen to him as well. Tramell Tillman really captured everyone's attention in season 1, so I'm thrilled that he has been rewarded with a much richer storyline for season 2. And I also want to give a shout out to Sarah Bach as Miss Huang in a role that by episode 6 was becoming pretty darn interesting. I was like, wow, this is evolving in ways I did not expect. So as I said, these are 10 45 to 50-minute episodes. They get a lot in, story-wise, with tons of characters, and also even some fun surprise cameos. Episode 1 has a great surprise cameo that I think, well, at least even if you're a little iffy on the episode like I was, you'll be like, at least they got that person to participate. That's pretty cool. That just shows you how the show's blowing up, that they can get people like that. And visually, Severance continues to be stunning, with meticulous production design and costume design that really sell you on this bizarre world. And and on top of that, again, it's stepping up its game in terms of camera movement and placement and all those good things. And I think it makes it feel even more cinematic, and really, it's this interesting thing of it's like Lumon is like 60s, 70s technology, but yet the show itself is like very cutting edge. It's really, really strong stuff. Watching Squid Game season 2 and then this back to back is very, very rewarding. So if you haven't watched season 1 and you're like, I want to be in this party too, well, don't worry about it. You could binge that show so fast because it's amazing. And since this is a weekly release, season 2, you'll catch up real fast. And then you'll be like, why do we have to I don't know. I don't know. I think Apple TV, I don't know if it has a large enough audience to generate discussion every week. I'm still torn on but then I don't think people talked about Squid Game season 2 enough. I think they did. I'm still torn on the weekly versus binge release schedule. What do you prefer? But this is a great show. As I said, I honestly believe Severance is becoming one of the greatest TV shows of all time. And I hope that it continues to grow in popularity, much like Succession did. At first, nobody was watching Succession. Succession never got a huge audience, but it got an audience that loved it. And so it ended up trending on social media all the time. Maybe Severance will trend. That would be great week to week. And it also, Succession ended up winning tons of awards. And I hope that's what is in store for Severance. So that's my non-spoiler review of Severance, which again starts Friday, January 17th, tomorrow. Or tonight, actually. As I said, Apple TV drops its episodes at midnight Eastern Standard Time. I really highly recommend that you check it out. Share your thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.